Buckingham Palace, London *, standing at the very heart of London, surrounded by ceremonial avenues, lush royal parks, and the constant gaze of millions of visitors every year. Buckingham Palace is far more than just a grand building of stone and splendor. It is a living symbol of monarchy, continuity, and national identity. Every brick, every gilded gate, every balcony appearance has carried with it the weight of tradition, the whispers of history, and the evolving story of Britain itself. To tell the story of Buckingham Palace is to tell the story of a nation, its kings and queens, its moments of triumph and turbulence, and its careful balance between pageantry and politics. Yet the palace that the world admires today was not always the centerpiece of royal life. It began in far humbler circumstances, rooted in the ambitions of dukes, and shaped by centuries of architectural transformation and the ever-changing role of the British Crown. The origins of Buckingham Palace trace back to the early 18th century, when the site was not yet the regal epicenter we know, but rather a modest plot of land on the edge of St. James's Park. At the time, London was expanding, its fashionable West End becoming the favoured haunt of aristocrats, and in 1703, John Sheffield, the Duke of Buckingham, commissioned the construction of a townhouse on this land. Known simply as Buckingham House, it was intended as a private residence, a statement of status and refinement rather than a palace for kings and queens. Designed by architect William Wynd, the house was elegant but restrained, featuring a central block with 2 projecting wings, and overlooking gardens that provided a serene retreat from the bustle of the growing city. Little could the Duke have known that his house would one day evolve into the most famous royal residence in the world. It was in 1761 that Buckingham House's destiny shifted dramatically. King George III, seeking a family home away from the formalities of St. James's Palace, purchased the property for his wife, Queen Charlotte. For decades thereafter, the house became known as the Queen's House, serving as a private and domestic haven where the King and Queen raised their children. Unlike the state apartments of St. James's, Buckingham House offered intimacy, warmth, and a sense of privacy unusual for a royal setting. It was here that Queen Charlotte held musical evenings, fostered the arts, and raised her 15 children, while George III enjoyed the quieter rhythms of domestic life, even as the storm clouds of political upheaval, both at home and abroad, swirled around him. This period laid the foundations for Buckingham House's transformation, for it firmly planted the seeds of its association with the monarchy, turning it from an aristocratic townhouse into a royal dwelling. As the 19th century dawned, the small but dignified Buckingham House was deemed insufficient for the expanding needs of the monarchy. King George IV, flamboyant, extravagant, and ever in search of grandeur, resolved to transform it into a palace worthy of his reign. He enlisted the celebrated architect John Nash, whose flair for dramatic design had already left its mark on Regent Street and Regent's Park. Nash set about turning the modest house into a lavish palace, extending the wings, adding opulent facades, and creating interiors filled with gilded ornamentation, chandeliers, and sweeping staircases. Under George IV's direction, Buckingham House became Buckingham Palace in form and name, though his extravagance also drew criticism, for the costs of the project ballooned to staggering levels. Still, the foundations of the modern palace were set, even if George IV himself never resided there. When William IV succeeded to the throne in 1830, he found Nash's palace both impressive and problematic. The costs had spiraled, the construction remained incomplete, and the building was riddled with practical shortcomings. William even considered converting Buckingham Palace into a parliamentary building or national museum. Yet destiny intervened again in 1837, when the young Queen Victoria ascended to the throne. For the first time, Buckingham Palace became the official London residence of the sovereign, cementing its role as the heart of monarchy. The teenage queen moved into the palace, making it not only a seat of authority, but also the setting for her courtship, marriage, and family life with Prince Albert. Over the decades of her reign, the palace expanded once more, with the addition of the famous central balcony from which royal figures would address their people, a tradition that continues to this day. Asterisk. When Queen Victoria made Buckingham Palace her official residence in 1837, she was barely 18 years old, inexperienced in the art of ruling, and more accustomed to the sheltered world of Kensington Palace, where she had grown up. Her move to Buckingham Palace was both symbolic and practical. It was a physical declaration that this new reign would be one of independence and modernity. Yet the palace she inherited was not the polished, world-famous landmark we recognize today. It was riddled with drafty corridors, inadequate kitchens, poor sanitation, and even complaints of vermin infestations. Courtiers sometimes mocked it as the Queen's great folly. Nevertheless, Victoria embraced it as her home and set about transforming it into a proper seat of monarchy. The arrival of Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, whom Victoria married in 1840, changed everything. Albert was not only a consort, but also a visionary administrator and designer. He saw Buckingham Palace not merely as a home, but as a representation of monarchy in the industrial age stage upon which Britain's global role as an empire would be performed. Together, Victoria and Albert expanded the palace, adding new wings, reshaping the gardens, and commissioning artistic works that reflected Britain's cultural dynamism. Albert's German sense of order and practicality influenced the palace's organization. From the arrangement of staterooms to the planning of ceremonial functions, it was during Victoria's reign that Buckingham Palace truly became synonymous with royal pageantry. The palace began hosting state banquets, court balls, and investitures, all of which set the rhythm of the royal calendar. These events were not merely social gatherings. They were carefully orchestrated displays of power, tradition, and continuity. The throne room, with its crimson draperies and gilded accents, became the backdrop for ceremonial occasions, while the white drawing room offered intimacy for audiences and receptions. Slowly, the palace developed into both a public stage and a private sanctuary, embodying the dual role of monarchy as both a political institution and a family life. Yet, life at Buckingham Palace during Victoria's time was not without its challenges. In 1848, revolutionary unrest swept across Europe, toppling monarchies and frightening aristocracies. Though Britain remained largely stable, Buckingham Palace was placed under heightened security, with fears that the discontent might spill across the Channel. Victoria's reign also saw moments of personal sorrow played out within the palace walls. None greater than the death of Prince Albert in 1861. For the Queen, the palace became a place of mourning, and for many years she retreated from public life, cloistering herself in Windsor and Balmoral, leaving Buckingham Palace shrouded in a sense of gloom. Windows were darkened, receptions were cancelled, and the once vibrant heart of London royal life seemed to fade. It was only toward the latter part of her reign that Buckingham Palace returned to prominence, as Queen Victoria reluctantly resumed her public duties. Buoyed by her role as Empress of India and symbol of a vast global empire, the palace became the focal point for great occasions: jubilees celebrating her long reign, processions, and the dazzling displays of empire at its zenith. Crowds thronged outside its gates to glimpse their queen, establishing the enduring tradition of the palace as the stage where the monarchy met its people. Architecturally, this period also marked significant transformation. The east wing was added, enclosing the courtyard and giving the palace the grand facade that faces the Mall today. Designed by Edward Blower and later refined, this wing included the famous balcony, from which generations of royals have waved to cheering crowds. The balcony itself would become one of the most iconic features of Buckingham Palace, forever linked with moments of national significance, from royal weddings to wartime solidarity, coronations, and jubilees. By the end of Victoria's reign in 1901, Buckingham Palace had cemented its place not only as the royal residence but as the symbolic heart of the British Empire, representing continuity in a rapidly changing world. It was no longer mocked for its inadequacies, but revered as the stage on which history was played, a role it would continue to expand in the turbulent years of the 20th century. When Queen Victoria passed away in 1901, a new century began, and with it a new monarch, her eldest son, Edward VII. The Edwardian era brought with it a spirit of confidence, elegance, and change. Buckingham Palace reflected this shift. Where Victoria's reign had often been cloaked in sombre formality, Edward VII infused the palace with new vitality. He was a monarch who delighted in society, diplomacy, and the art of entertaining. And under his reign, the palace blossomed into a hub of glittering receptions, grand state banquets, and elaborate investitures. The palace's interiors were updated to reflect a lighter, more fashionable aesthetic, with French-inspired decor, gilded ceilings, and richly adorned rooms that showcased the confidence of a nation at the height of its global influence. Edward VII also recognized the palace's diplomatic importance. He understood that Buckingham Palace was not just a royal home, but a stage for international relations. Foreign monarchs, presidents, and dignitaries were received in its halls, cementing Britain's place as a world power. State banquets in the ballroom became opportunities not only for display but also for subtle diplomacy, as alliances were forged and relationships maintained under the glittering chandeliers. Though Edward's reign was short, he died in 1910. It marked an important evolution for Buckingham Palace, setting the tone for its 20th century role as both a domestic residence and a global stage. His successor, George V, inherited not only the palace but also the challenges of a rapidly changing world. His reign would see the upheavals of World War I and the decline of empires. Buckingham Palace, with its grandeur and traditions, sometimes appeared out of step with the mood of the times. Yet George V was keenly aware of the need for the monarchy to adapt. In 1917, at the height of anti-German sentiment, he made a symbolic but significant change. The royal family's name, previously tied to the German-sounding House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, was altered to the House of Windsor. This decision was announced from Buckingham Palace itself, transforming the residence into the visible heart of a national rebranding, aligning the monarchy more closely with British identity during wartime. During World War I, the palace played a quieter but nonetheless important role. While it did not face the direct physical dangers that would later come in World War II, it was the site of meetings, charitable efforts, and royal solidarity with troops and civilians. Queen Mary, George V's consort, organized aid efforts and supported hospitals, while the palace symbolized stability at a time when so many monarchies across Europe were collapsing under the weight of war and revolution. In contrast, Buckingham Palace endured, and the monarchy with it, reinforcing the palace's role as a constant in turbulent times. The interwar years saw the palace continue its cycle of ceremonies and traditions, but also its moments of crisis. The abdication of Edward VIII in 1936 was one of the most dramatic events in modern royal history, and Buckingham Palace was at the center of the storm. The king, who had only recently moved into the palace after his father George V's death, shocked the nation by giving up the throne in order to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. For a brief and unsettling period, the palace stood in uncertainty, its very walls reflecting the instability of monarchy. When Edward VIII abdicated, his younger brother reluctantly took the throne as George VI, bringing his wife Elizabeth, later the beloved Queen Mother, and their young daughters, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret, into Buckingham Palace. Then came World War II, a time when Buckingham Palace's fate would intertwine deeply with the fate of Britain itself. Unlike in the First World War, this time the palace was not spared from physical attack. Between 1940 and 1941, German bombers struck Buckingham Palace on several occasions, damaging the chapel, the courtyard, and other parts of the building. On one occasion, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth were inside the palace when it was bombed. Rather than retreat to safety, the King and Queen chose to remain in London, sharing the dangers of their people. Queen Elizabeth famously declared, after a bombing raid, that she was glad the palace had been hit, for it allowed her to look the East End in the face. This solidarity earned the royal couple deep respect, and Buckingham Palace itself became a symbol of national resilience. Standing battered but unbroken as London endured the Blitz, the image of the King and Queen walking through the bomb-damaged palace, their daughters sheltered at Windsor but frequently visiting, became iconic. It reminded the people that the monarchy was sharing in their suffering and was steadfast in its duty. The palace balcony, already famous, now took on new meaning as the place where the royal family appeared to boost morale and show unity. By the war's end in 1945, Buckingham Palace stood not merely as a royal residence, but as a scarred but triumphant monument to endurance, embodying the nation's survival against extraordinary odds. When victory was declared, crowds surged to the gates of Buckingham Palace, singing, cheering, and demanding to see their king, queen, and princesses. On VE Day, the young Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret were allowed to slip out into the celebrating crowds incognito, mingling with the very people whose spirits they had helped to sustain from the balcony above. That evening, the palace glowed as a beacon of hope and renewal, cementing its status as the symbolic heart of the nation, a role it has never relinquished. The end of the Second World War marked not just a victory for Britain, but also the beginning of a new chapter for Buckingham Palace. Though parts of the building bore the scars of bombing raids, it stood proudly as a symbol of resilience. As the nation rebuilt, so too did the palace reclaim its role as the ceremonial heart of the monarchy. In 1952, with the death of King George VI, a young Princess Elizabeth ascended to the throne as Queen Elizabeth II, and Buckingham Palace became the epicenter of her reign that would last longer than any other in British history. Elizabeth, too, was only 25 when she became queen, and Buckingham Palace suddenly became both her home and the stage upon which the monarchy would be presented to the world. The coronation of 1953, though held at Westminster Abbey, spilled into the palace when the newly crowned queen appeared on the famous balcony alongside Prince Philip and other members of the royal family. This moment, broadcast for the first time on live television, connected Buckingham Palace with millions of households worldwide. The palace was no longer an inaccessible fortress of royalty. Through the lens of television, it became a familiar backdrop to the story of modern monarchy. In the decades that followed, Buckingham Palace witnessed the highs and lows of royal life under Elizabeth II. It hosted glittering state banquets for visiting heads of state, including American presidents, African leaders, European monarchs, and Asian dignitaries, reinforcing Britain's position on the global stage. The palace ballroom, with its soaring ceilings and gilded ornamentation, became the setting for dinners of diplomatic importance, where the Queen, with calm grace, embodied continuity in a rapidly changing world. Yet beyond diplomacy, the palace also became the setting for deeply personal moments of national significance. Royal weddings drew global attention, transforming the palace balcony into a stage for fairy tale images. In 1981, Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer married at St. Paul's Cathedral, but it was the kiss on the Buckingham Palace balcony that captured the world's imagination, a defining image of royal romance. Crowds packed the mall, and television audiences numbered in the hundreds of millions. That same balcony would later host the Queen during jubilees, military commemorations, and moments of national pride, embedding it even deeper into the cultural consciousness. Yet the palace was also the setting for moments of sorrow. In 1997, the sudden death of Diana, Princess of Wales, plunged the nation into grief. Public mourning was intense, and for a time, Buckingham Palace became the focal point of public anger. Crowds gathered outside its gates, demanding visible grief and acknowledgement from the monarchy. The absence of the royal standard flying at half-mast, and the Queen's initial decision to remain at Balmoral with her grieving grandsons drew sharp criticism. Eventually, the Queen returned to London, addressed the nation from the palace, and bowed her head before Diana's coffin as it passed. This marked a pivotal moment in the evolving relationship between monarchy and people, and Buckingham Palace once again stood at the center of it. The palace also adapted to the demands of modern transparency. In 1993, in the wake of financial scrutiny and public pressure, Buckingham Palace opened parts of its staterooms to paying visitors for the first time. The proceeds went toward repairing Windsor Castle after a devastating fire. What had once been the private domain of monarchs was now, for part of the year, open to ordinary citizens and tourists from around the world, allowing millions to glimpse the throne room, the ballroom, and the gilded splendor of royal interiors. This move helped to reframe the palace as not only a royal residence, but also a cultural and historical institution belonging to the people. Technological advances also reshaped Buckingham Palace's role. Televised Christmas broadcasts from the Queen became annual traditions, often filmed in palace rooms adorned with festive decorations. Later, the rise of the internet and social media brought Buckingham Palace into the digital age, with official royal websites, Twitter accounts, and live-streamed ceremonies connecting younger generations to the traditions of monarchy. The image of the palace lit up during jubilees, or adorned with Union Jacks during national celebrations, became instantly shareable symbols of unity. At Elizabeth II's reign was marked by multiple Jubilee silver in 1977, golden in 2002, diamond in 2012, and platinum in 2022, all of which turned Buckingham Palace into a stage of national celebration. The Platinum Jubilee in particular saw the palace host spectacular events, from concerts in its gardens to drone light shows above its skyline, merging centuries-old tradition with modern spectacle. The balcony appearances during these jubilees, with generations of royals standing shoulder to shoulder, reinforced the palace's symbolic role as the bridge between monarchy and people, even in times of crisis. The palace remained central. During the COVID-19 pandemic, while much of the world was under lockdown, Queen Elizabeth II addressed the nation from within Buckingham Palace, delivering a message of hope. "We will meet again." This echoed wartime resilience and reminded citizens of the palace's continuity as a beacon of stability. By the time of Queen Elizabeth II's death in 2022, Buckingham Palace had been the backdrop to 70 years of history, of triumph, tragedy, modernization, and tradition. The scenes of mourning that followed, with crowds gathering at the gates, laying flowers, and singing hymns, demonstrated yet again the palace's unique role as the emotional heart of Britain. As King Charles III ascended to the throne, he inherited not only a crown but also the stewardship of Buckingham Palace, a building that had grown from a duke's townhouse into the most iconic royal residence in the world. The accession of King Charles III in September 2022, following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, marked a new chapter in the long story of Buckingham Palace. For over 70 years, the palace had been synonymous with Elizabeth II's reign, her balcony appearances, and her steady presence. Now, as Charles assumed the throne, Buckingham Palace once again stood as the stage of continuity, a building that has outlived monarchs, wars, and social revolutions, yet remains central to the identity of the monarchy. One of the defining features of Charles III's early reign has been the modernization and renovation of Buckingham Palace itself. In recent years, the palace embarked on a vast 10-year refurbishment program estimated to cost hundreds of millions of pounds, with the goal of preserving the building for future generations. Much of the palace's electrical, plumbing, and heating systems had not been updated since the 1950s, and the renovations have been both practical and symbolic. By replacing outdated systems and restoring historical features, the palace ensures that it can continue to serve as both a functioning royal residence and a heritage site of international importance. For Charles, who has long championed sustainability and environmental stewardship, the renovations carry an additional significance: the opportunity to make Buckingham Palace greener, more energy efficient, and better suited to modern expectations, as Charles III took up his duties. Buckingham Palace reaffirmed its role as the ceremonial heart of the monarchy. The Accession Council, the first proclamation of the new king, and subsequent ceremonies unfolded with the palace as the backdrop. In May 2023, although his coronation was held at Westminster Abbey like his mother's before him, Buckingham Palace became the focal point of celebration. The grand procession that followed the coronation culminated at the palace, where Charles and Queen Camilla appeared on the balcony before crowds, filling the mall. This moment echoed the balcony traditions of generations past, symbolizing the continuity of monarchy even amid change. Yet Charles faces challenges unique to the modern age. Public attitudes toward monarchy are shifting, with some questioning its relevance in a multicultural, democratic society. Buckingham Palace, in this context, is both an asset and a symbol under scrutiny. Its grandeur and history inspire awe, but they also represent the financial and cultural weight of an ancient institution. Charles has signaled a desire for a slimmed-down monarchy, and it remains to be seen how this philosophy will shape the use of Buckingham Palace. Will it continue to serve primarily as the residence and working office of the monarch, or will parts of it become increasingly open to the public, functioning more like a national museum of monarchy? Despite these debates, Buckingham Palace continues to play its timeless roles. It hosts state visits, welcoming leaders from across the globe. Its staterooms are still the setting for banquets and investitures, where centuries-old traditions unfold beneath gilded ceilings. Its gardens, an oasis in the heart of London, provide not only royal leisure but also charitable engagement, as the annual garden parties continue to welcome thousands of guests from across Britain who have contributed to public life. The changing of the guard, with its precision and pageantry, still draws tourists daily, reinforcing the palace as one of the most visited and photographed sites in the world. The palace also thrives as a cultural icon beyond ceremony. It has appeared in countless films, documentaries, novels, and television dramas, from historical reconstructions to fictionalized portrayals like The Crown to millions worldwide. Buckingham Palace represents not only British monarchy but also Britain itself, its traditions, its endurance, and its allure. the image of its illuminated facade during national events, projected with light shows or echoed in drone displays, merges old-world grandeur with new-world spectacle. Looking to the future, Buckingham Palace's role is likely to continue evolving. It will remain the heart of national celebration, whether for jubilees, coronations, or royal weddings, but it will also increasingly act as a bridge between monarchy and people, as sustainability, transparency, and accessibility grow in importance. Buckingham Palace may embody these values through its renovations and public engagement. What began as a duke's townhouse in the 18th century has become not only the most recognized royal residence in the world, but also a living institution, constantly adapting to the demands of each era, while preserving the weight of tradition. In the reign of Charles III and beyond, Buckingham Palace will stand as both heritage and hope, a palace where history is remembered. The present is celebrated, and the future is shaped. Its gates, gardens, and gilded rooms remain a reminder that monarchy is not static but a story in motion, a story told not only through kings and queens, but through the walls that have witnessed their reigns. Buckingham Palace endures as the heart of this narrative, a structure of stone and spirit that continues to define the very image of British royalty to the world. Asterisk. Buckingham Palace is not just a residence. It is the theatrical heart of British monarchy, where centuries-old ceremonies and meticulously choreographed rituals bring the history and authority of the crown to life. Perhaps the most iconic of these is the changing of the guard, a daily spectacle that blends precision, pomp, and pageantry. Onlookers from around the world gather outside the palace gates to witness the guards, clad in their distinctive red tunics and bearskin hats, march with military discipline to the rhythmic sound of drums and brass instruments. The ceremony is more than a tourist attraction. It is a living tradition dating back to 1660, symbolizing the monarch's vigilance and the continuity of royal duty. Each movement, salute, and step is executed with perfect synchronization, underscoring the disciplined elegance of the institution the palace represents. Equally significant is the trooping the color, an annual military parade held in June to celebrate the sovereign's official birthday. Buckingham Palace's forecourt and the Mall become the stage for this grand display, as regiments of the household division march in elaborate formations, accompanied by mounted bands and artillery salutes. The royal family appears on the central balcony, where the monarch inspects the troops and exchanges waves with the cheering crowds. For spectators, this event is a vivid spectacle of tradition, patriotism, and ceremonial precision, linking the modern monarchy with its historical roots in military service. The palace balcony itself has become a symbol of national identity, hosting some of the most memorable moments in modern history. From Queen Victoria's first appearances to Queen Elizabeth II's Jubilee celebrations, royal weddings, and commemorations, the balcony has witnessed countless emotionally charged scenes. During wartime, it was a platform of solidarity. During Jubilee years, it is a stage of joy and national pride. The simple act of standing together on that balcony, waving to crowds below, transforms the palace from a private residence into a symbol of collective experience, a shared space where personal monarchy and public sentiment converge. State visits are another cornerstone of Buckingham Palace's ceremonial life. Foreign leaders, from presidents to emperors, are received with meticulous protocol, including carriages drawn by Windsor Greys, guards in ceremonial dress, and the sound of military fanfares. Within the palace, banquets are held in the grand ballroom, where the finest silverware, crystal, and royal heraldry reflect centuries of regal tradition. Every detail, from seating arrangements to menu choices, carries historical and symbolic significance, creating an environment where diplomacy, culture, and ceremony intersect. These visits reaffirm the palace's role as a stage for international relations, emphasizing Britain's continuity and prestige. Buckingham Palace also hosts investitures, ceremonies where individuals are awarded honors such as knighthoods, OBEs, and MBEs. The throne room becomes a setting where achievement is formally recognized, as recipients bow before the sovereign and receive their medals. These occasions are intimate yet profoundly symbolic, blending tradition with recognition of modern contribution. By connecting everyday citizens to the monarchy, the palace reinforces its role as a living, interactive institution, not merely a historic relic. The palace grounds themselves host ceremonial life as well. The annual garden parties, established by Queen Victoria, bring thousands of citizens into the heart of the palace gardens. Guests are selected for public service, charitable contributions, or military achievement, turning the royal gardens into a microcosm of national life. These events combine elegance with offering attendees the rare experience of walking where kings and queens walk, sharing conversations with members of the royal family, and enjoying performances and refreshments amid meticulously manicured landscapes. Even funerals and memorial services are orchestrated, with Buckingham Palace as the backdrop. The palace gates become places of reflection, while the balcony offers a vantage point for ceremonial appearances. Mourning, like celebration, is ritualized within the palace walls, with staff, guards, and royals coordinating to maintain dignity, precision, and symbolism. Every protocol, from the draping of the royal standard to the arrangement of floral tributes, reinforces the palace's enduring role as both witness and participant in Britain's national life. Through these ceremonies and rituals, Buckingham Palace is transformed repeatedly from a private home into a public stage, from a residence into a national symbol, from architecture into living culture. Each event, whether daily, annual, or exceptional, reinforces the palace's identity as the heartbeat of British ceremonial tradition, connecting past, present, and future. The palace is not simply a setting for history, it is an active participant in history, shaping perceptions of monarchy, nationhood, and civic identity while reminding the world of the enduring power of ritual and symbolism. Beyond its role as a royal residence and ceremonial stage, Buckingham Palace has become one of the most recognized cultural icons in the world. Its image illuminated at night, framed by them all, and viewed from countless postcards, films, documentaries, and digital media transcends borders. From the earliest newsreels of coronations to modern streaming broadcasts of jubilees and royal weddings, Buckingham Palace has consistently been the lens through which people around the globe experience the British monarchy. Television and cinema have immortalized it, from dramatic portrayals in The Crown to documentary series that take audiences behind its gilded doors, offering glimpses of life inside the palace and the monarchy's inner workings. Its presence in music videos, novels, and even animated films demonstrates how Buckingham Palace functions as both a real place and a symbolic representation of tradition, prestige, and British identity. Tourism also underscores its global significance. Millions of visitors flock each year to witness the changing of the guard, walk through the palace gates, and explore the summer staterooms. Buckingham Palace acts as a bridge between the British monarchy and the world, offering a tangible connection to history, culture, and art. Its gardens, courtyard, and exterior facades provide backdrops for celebrations, photography, and civic engagement, turning every visit into both a personal and collective experience. The palace's ability to blend accessibility with exclusivity ensures it remains relevant to both citizens and international audiences, maintaining the allure of royalty while respecting its historic protocols. Moreover, Buckingham Palace embodies the evolving relationship between monarchy and society, while steeped in centuries of tradition. It has adapted to modernity, opening its doors to the public, embracing new technology, and responding to national and global events. It serves as a constant in times of stability and upheaval alike. From wartime solidarity to moments of national celebration, from royal mourning to jubilee pageantry, its walls have witnessed intimate family moments, public duties, crises, triumphs, and the quiet rhythms of daily life, making it not merely a palace of stone and gold, but a living archive of Britain itself, as King Charles III ushers in a new era. Buckingham Palace continues to evolve, balancing heritage with contemporary relevance. The ongoing renovations ensure that the palace can meet the practical needs of a modern monarchy while preserving the artistry and history that define it. The ceremonial traditions, once strictly confined to royal audiences, now reach millions via global media, while the palace itself continues to welcome citizens for garden parties, tours, and public celebrations. In every sense, Buckingham Palace is both timeless and dynamic, a structure rooted in history yet engaged with the present, a home and a stage, a symbol and a reality. In conclusion, Buckingham Palace is far more than a royal residence. It is the living heartbeat of British monarchy, a place where history, ceremony, and culture converge. Its gates, balconies, gardens, and gilded halls tell stories of kings and queens, wars and celebrations, private moments and public spectacles. From its humble origins as a duke's townhouse to its current status as the global symbol of the crown, Buckingham Palace endures as a testament to continuity, resilience, and adaptation. Every brick, every room, every ceremonial event adds to its living legacy, ensuring that it will continue to capture the imagination of the world for generations to come. In standing before Buckingham Palace, one does not simply witness architecture or monarchy. One encounters history itself woven into the very fabric of Britain's identity, echoing across centuries and alive in the present day. crossing the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace and stepping beyond its famous facade. One enters a world where architecture, ceremony, and history intertwine. Behind its Portland stone exterior lies a labyrinth of over 770 rooms, each with a distinct purpose, atmosphere, and role in the life of the monarchy. To the visitor, the palace may seem like a single grand entity, but in reality, it is a complex organism, part royal household, part working government office, part museum of national heritage, and part family home. The sheer scale of Buckingham Palace is staggering. 19 staterooms, 52 principal bedrooms, 188 staff bedrooms, 92 offices, and 78 bathrooms, making it not just one of the most famous palaces in the world, but also one of the busiest. Among its most celebrated spaces are the staterooms, opened to the public each summer since 1993. The throne room is perhaps the most iconic. Adorned in crimson and gold, with twin thrones crafted for Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Today, it is used for ceremonial occasions such as receptions and official photographs, including those commemorating royal weddings. Its design, with dramatic archways and ornamental details, speaks to the grandeur expected of monarchy, but also to its theatrical role as a backdrop to the rituals of power. The White Drawing Room is another jewel in the palace's crown, bathed in light and elegance. It serves as both a reception room and a place where the monarch meets guests before state occasions. Here, hidden doors cleverly disguised within mirrors lead to the private apartments of the royal family. A reminder that beneath all the formality lies a functional living space. Visitors are often captivated not only by the opulence of the decor, silks, chandeliers, gilded furniture, but also by the intimacy suggested by the Queen's piano or the subtle signs of personal use. The ballroom, completed in 1855 under Queen Victoria, is the largest room in the palace, stretching 36.6 meters long, 18 meters wide, and 13.5 meters high. It is the venue for state banquets, where tables are laid with dazzling silver gilt centerpieces, heirlooms of the monarchy dating back to George IV's extravagant tastes. Each banquet requires meticulous preparation. Footmen polish cutlery and glassware until they gleam. Florists arrange seasonal displays, and hundreds of candles and electric lights create a glow that transforms the room into a vision of grandeur. Yet this room is also used for investitures, where citizens of the realm receive honors from the sovereign. Moments where pageantry meets recognition of public service. Art and culture flow through the palace as much as protocol. The Royal Collection, one of the greatest art collections in the world, is housed in part within Buckingham Palace. Works by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Canaletto, and Rubens hang on its walls, alongside sculptures, tapestries, and priceless decorative arts. Unlike a museum, however, these works are not static. They form part of a living household, used as decoration for rooms that continue to serve official functions. Guests attending state dinners may find themselves dining beneath masterpieces that most would only glimpse behind museum glass. The palace is therefore not merely a home of monarchy, but also a living gallery of cultural heritage. The palace gardens extend this sense of majesty outdoors. Covering over 39 acres, they are the largest private gardens in London. Hidden behind the palace walls, they contain a lake, tennis courts, and winding paths lined with rare plants. It is here that the Queen and, now the King, host annual garden parties, welcoming thousands of citizens from across the United Kingdom. For many guests, a garden party is a once-in-a-lifetime honor, offering a chance to meet members of the royal family while enjoying tea, sandwiches, and the beauty of the gardens. Yet beyond the public spectacles, the gardens also provide a place of retreat, where the royal family can enjoy quiet moments of leisure in the heart of a bustling capital. Life inside Buckingham Palace is sustained by an army of staff. Over 400 employees work within its walls, ranging from chefs, butlers, and cleaners to archivists, art conservators, and administrative staff. The master of the household oversees operations, ensuring that everything from state banquets to daily meals runs with precision. The Lord Chamberlain's office manages ceremonial duties, while the Royal Collection Trust cares for the priceless artworks. It is a world governed by hierarchy and tradition, but also by modern professionalism, blending centuries-old practices with contemporary management. Few visitors realize that beneath the grand rooms lies a network of practical spaces, kitchens buzzing with activity, laundries processing thousands of items of clothing and linen, and offices where correspondence from around the world is answered. Even the palace post office is a functioning service, handling the monarch's immense volume of letters. These behind-the-scenes areas remind us that Buckingham Palace is not frozen in grandeur, but is, in truth, a working machine, serving the monarchy's daily and ceremonial needs. Perhaps most fascinating of all are the hidden stories within the palace. Tunnels are rumoured to link Buckingham Palace to other parts of London, though these remain largely unconfirmed in detail. Secret doors and passageways allow royals to move discreetly between private and public areas. During World War II, basement rooms were converted into air raid shelters and command centers. More recently, stories of staff rituals, such as the precise placement of flags, the careful preparation of balcony appearances, and the long rehearsals for state ceremonies speak to the incredible detail and discipline that underpins royal pageantry. In exploring Buckingham Palace's interiors, we uncover not just a house of kings and queens, but a stage where history, culture, and daily life converge. It is a place where priceless art hangs above bustling offices, where gilded thrones stand within earshot of working kitchens, and where centuries of continuity are lived out in the routines of both monarchs and servants. The palace is not simply a monument. It is a living organism, shaped by tradition but pulsing with the activity of the present.